stayed up till 11 watching the last presidential debate. Um, so it's been good sleep recently. I'm a little focused on the weather. It seems too hot to me. I remember last year at this time, I felt like October should have been colder. It was like 80 degrees yesterday. I find that disconcerting. All right. So today I want to go over what we've gone over this week, and then I want to talk about Belfour and how it's the opposite of suicidal ideation. It's one of the things that my life includes now is an engagement with people in their most vulnerable. And part of the reason why I think that's where my life is um, I understand it, and I was engaged yesterday with a conversation around suicidal ideation that it made a lot of sense why the person was experiencing what they're experiencing, and how it fits, right, how it all fits into this thing we call life, and how it fits. And it was so interesting to talk about suicidal ideation as a just a phenomenon without any kind of particular judgment around it, right? Just it's what can happen. And so I wanted to wrap up this week's training. It's eh, interesting that this conversation would have happened, and in the context of this week and everything. So I'll do my best to be succinct. Okay. So the first thing that we want to be aware of is the larger picture, so the grand narrative. What the grand narrative is less important. What the grand narrative is less important than the fact that it's cultural. Okay? So, in other words, it's learned. And it's important that it's learned. Learned. Okay? That's impact. It's how we perceive the world. So it's kind of birth. This shows up. Birth. Dream. So the basic idea behind the grand narrative is that there's this beginning and there's this end. So that's an important understanding to be aware of, that there's a beginning and an end. So it's linear. So that's where the grand narrative comes from. Okay. So when this comes down to the human, okay, what happens when it comes down to the human is that the human can perceive, based on the culture and based on the narrative, that their mind, I can't see that. Yeah, okay, so that their mind is 100% of their reality. That's the key piece right here. That's what my mind thinks is my mind, what my mind can come up with, what my thoughts are. Thoughts. I am my thoughts. That's kind of what this supports. Okay, so the grand narrative supports this. I am my thoughts, and at some point I'll get to this place, and when I get to this place, then I'll be happy. Okay, so that's kind of where that all comes from, in a very, very kind of bare bones explanation. All right, so what we do with 4 bells is we counter that. And we counter that in practice. So that's really important. So bell one disrupts grand narrative. Bell 1 disrupts grand narrative by turning that line into a circle. Bell 1 disrupts grand narrative by turning this into a circle by focusing on present moment. Okay, so the present moment shifts from the mind, which is, this is past, future. Mind is 100%, that's past, future. Okay, so we shift from the bell 1, you shift into the present moment. And so the present moment is without kind of time. It shifts from thoughts to experience in moment Okay, so it's creating that shift. So the second that shift is created, the present moment shift, okay, with the senses, there's a bifurcation, okay? So once you recognize that there is a moment to be aware of as opposed to just what's going on in your thoughts, then two things happen. One is you break out of the grand narrative, but two, you create this thing called awareness. So awareness shows up. So bell one moves from I am my thoughts to experience the moment or awareness. And then bell two takes that awareness and puts it into the body. Okay, so once you go from grand narrative, culturally learned, mind 100% of reality, here's my past, here's the dream I want to get to, here's the future, once you break that up with bell one, you move from your thoughts into the experience of the moment, which is awareness, and then you send that same process of awareness or present tense awareness into the body at your ground, this actually is, I have red. Huh, red. Oh, well, it's orange. So you got ground, pelvis, core, heart, throat, head. Okay, so now you shifted from the story, grand narrative, culturally learned story, into the moment, which is I have awareness. I am my thoughts too. I am the awareness of my thoughts and my body. Okay? So that shifts you from I am my mind to I have a mind and I have a body, which is big. That takes away a major component of this grand narrative, because this is really, really significant. I'm going to point this out later, but this dream, this future, this ideal place that you get to is really significant. So I'll explain that to a second. So if you recognize that I am the experience, or I'm the awareness of my thoughts, I am the awareness of my body, then it's no longer I am my thoughts, it's I have thoughts. I have sensation. Now, bell 4 or bell 3 is what you do about it. So bell 3 is breath. And so bell 3 is the engagement with. So I have thoughts, I have sensations. Well, what do you do about it? Well, that's the breath. So the breath is what you do about the fact that you're aware of these things, but just because you're aware of them, fine, I'm aware of these things. Well, what do I do about it? What do I do about the fact that I feel like, really, 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 really this? Or what do I do about the fact that I feel really, really this? What do I do about that? Well, that's where your breath comes in, because your breath where I'll put this. Breath can change experience. Breath can change experience. So when you start learning how to use your breath, you realize that your breath can actually change what's going on inside. Now, what does breath change? Okay, so this is where we're getting into fourth bell, and this is where we're getting into suicidal ideation. So what does breath change? Let me see if I'm running out of space here. Breath can change your central nervous system. It can change the way your central nervous system is kind of positioned as a system. Okay, it's a system, so it's over your whole body. It's like culture's a system. It encapsulates everything. It's not just a chunk here and there. It has its relationship to everything. So when you change with your breath and you do things with your breath, you can change your whole system. Okay. Now, another thing you can do with your breath when you change your whole system is you can shift. Okay. You can shift not only your central nervous system, but you can shift the hormones from your brain. So the hormones from your brain. So that's the hormones like oxytocin, which is the hug me hormone, the close feeling hormone, norepinephrine, dopamine, adrenaline. These are the feelings that we get when we're in kind of the best version of ourselves, it's like a slow burn, right? It's like a positive slow burn. It's not like alcohol, where alcohol just, you throw something on the fire that's really dry and it flashes whoosh, but then it dies down real quick. So what we're talking about with the hormonal release from your head is, giving you energy, giving you pep, giving you joie de vivre, the reason to live, the excitement to live. So those hormones releasing. So when we get to bell 4, bell 4 is best self. And so when we train bell 4, I often guide you into things to feel grateful for, what makes you feel gratitude. I often guide you into what you feel compassion for, which is really a way of recognizing yourself, recognizing that you have suffered, that you've got suffering, you see that suffering in other people, and you put your goodwill out there. There's an effort to be supportive of those that are suffering. And that's the kind of the hormones from your brain. When you do that, you release hormones in your brain. It's not like a drug. It's not like you release hormones and all of a sudden it's like from here to, it's not that. It's a slow kind of thing. It's a slow, steady, it's the way the sun grows plants. That's how it works. Your hormone release is the same kind of, it has the influence over your body and your experience with life, the same way the sun has influence over plants. It's a slow, steady kind of thing. It's not plant the seed, plant shoots up, boom. It's not like that. It doesn't work like that. Now, here's where suicidal ideation comes in. Okay, these hormones from your brain, okay, they can be tricked by your mind. So if your mind, okay, if you think that you are your mind and you interact with reality from the 100% perspective of your mind, your thoughts, everything's processed by the mind. It's a 100% mind experience. Then you're going to be very much interactive with this past, future stuff. Everything's going to have this story behind it, and everything's going to have this expectation in the future. Now, let's just say your past is just really tough. I mean, just like the toughest kind of past you can imagine. Like I'm talking you, and two stories pop to mind. One is a veteran who served in the Iraq War, saw his Marines get blown up by friendly fire, return from the war, get married, have his wife do some shady stuff behind his back, have the government listen to the wife say he's a threat, have the government then come, or the state come in, take your kids with no explanation for why they're taking them, and then not give you any reason to get them back, right? Or not give you a chance to get them back. All for just bullshit, right? So a sense of betrayal. So that's one story. Another story that's really tough is, say you're, a pretty squared away, decent kid. You, do the best you can. You go to school, you join a fraternity, you interact with that fraternity. There's an experience where you're having a good time. That good time turns into an accident. You wake up in the hospital. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what happened. You don't know what the story is, but you wake up to find out that the friend that you were with is dead from a car accident. You've almost died. You're coming out of a coma, and now you're kind of in the hospital. You're starting to find out all this stuff. Then 3 days later, come to find out, and you have no memory of this. Then 3 days later, come to find out that you're now getting charged for the manslaughter of your friend. even though you have no memory of this, you have no memory, you don't even have memory that you drove the car. It's just, this is what they're now saying that's happened. There's some questionable things that have taken place. And now all of a sudden, you've literally gone from one moment where everything's cool to the next moment you're a felon, and you now have to go to jail, and then your entire life is disrupted. So when I'm talking about tough past, I'm talking about tough past, right? So you got this tough past. You're experiencing most of reality as a thought experience. You don't know how to shift from, I mean, you conceive of it. You have the concept. You have the concept. Yeah, I can get to the present moment, but you don't know how to do it on a regular basis. Mostly you're in thinking. You're in thinking. So you're in thinking. You're thinking about past, future. What do you bring from your past? You bring a lot of shame. You bring a lot of uncertainty. You bring a lot of feelings that you're not really interacting with because you're mostly in your mind. Okay. You're mostly interacting with that with your mind. You're not really interacting with it with your body. Okay. The body is more of an afterthought. You don't have any kind of resource in terms of the breath. You're not doing anything with your breath on a regular basis. You're not training that tool at all. You're not doing any of that. So what do you do? What do you think about in terms of getting yourself going? Well, you've got this really tough past. Life is hard. You know, you've got this dream of a future, but that's not really, it's not really a dream that's the nice kind of dream. You know, in the nice kind of dream, in the grand narrative, the nice kind of dream, the thing that motivates you, the things that get you going, right? Is this dream of a house, of kids, and a white picket fence, and all that kind of stuff. It gets you going. How does it get you going? Well, it's hormones, right? You get to feel these hormones in the brain. It's a systemic thing, so it's not just the feeling. There's a whole energy to it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if your past is really tough and your imagination about the future is filled with these kind of dark feelings, what do you think a person, because it's, I mean, this, you can still get that hit. What do you think a person like that thinks about to get going? And this was the conversation we had yesterday. What do you think a person thinks about to get going? Suicidal ideation. It's ironic, but it's the thought of killing oneself that gives life the energy to live, right? It's so ironic that that would be the thing. But if you look at it from this perspective, it's this past future, right? The notion that the pain will stop after your life has been destroyed by you is liberating. It's no longer a feeling of, I'm never going to get better. This is never going to work out. I'm going to be this way forever. I'm always going to be this. I'm always going to hold on to this. This is what trauma does. I mean, trauma just totally jacks you up. It totally jacks up the grand narrative, because what happens is that there's this big hole that opens up in the grand narrative, and there's nothing to fill it with. It's just there's nothing to fill it with. And it's like, what am I supposed to do? So me and this guy talked a lot about how the suicidal ideations, the thoughts, the imaginations, the imagery around suicide actually creates a sense of energy, a sense of activation in this dude's life. I mean, so it's totally ironic that it would be the thought of taking his life that gives his life energy. So I mean, I know what he's talking about. So the problem that happens when you're 100% reality of the mind, and you think you're your thoughts, and you don't have any of these tools, you can get into stuff in your body and feel things in your body that are unbearable, the most unbearable things that you can ever imagine. And it's just the worst. It is the worst feeling ever. And so what do you want when you're in a body experience that's unbearable? You want it to stop. Well, how do you, if you don't know how to stop it and you're mind oriented, okay, then what do? Well, you start imagining suicide. Why? Well, suicide takes the place of the dream of the future. Suicide takes the place of the motivation And so then the act of thinking about it and the fact that it's edgy, right? It's an edgy thing to think about taking your own life. Your system, your body is aware that you're thinking about this. That's your body knows that you're thinking about this, can tell, right? Your hormones are releasing into your body. So there's this edge. There's this kind of like, it's kind of the reason why soldiers like war. There's just this edge to it. There's this quality to it that gives it a little bit of risk. And because there's a little bit of risk, there's a little bit more adrenaline. There's a little bit more like, woof, woof. And so you do that. You do that as your tool to keep going. And this guy talked about this guy. He and I talked about it. This is what he does every day. This is what he does every single day. And so you think about that every single day. What that does is it just reinforces all this stuff. And the problem with that reinforcing is that you're wasting the opportunity. Look, suicide ideation is bad, right? But what's worse about it is it's a damn missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity to be reinforcing bell 4. You can't even see bell 4. But bell 4 takes the grand narrative, okay, and it kind of makes it spiritual. This is arguably what certain religions offer. Is beyond the materialist grand narrative is the spiritual grand narrative. The spiritual grand narrative is not so much straight. Well, kind of in certain ways of thinking about it is. It's like you live the spiritual ideal. You go from birth to heaven. So it's heaven, get to heaven, right? That's the spiritual narrative. But bell 4 is the we are not our minds, we are not our bodies, we are something more than that. And when we practice being more than our minds and more than our bodies, we move into that spiritual space. And that spiritual space is arguably a space that doesn't have time, it doesn't have distance, it's spiritual. And so when you move into the spiritual space and you practice things like gratitude and compassion, you're reinforcing this connection to the fact that you're not alone in this world. The fact that you're here matters. The thoughts that you have, the thoughts that you engage with, the body you engage with, the stuff that you do matters. And so what that means is that instead of suicidal ideation to get you going, you start practicing gratitude, you start practicing compassion, then that's what gets you going. So every time you have a suicidal ideation thought, you're missing out on the chance to have a best self thought. And so you're just reinforcing this slowly kind of debilitating way of thinking. And you could just be simply repeating the different type of thought. So you do the same thing that you're doing with suicidal ideation, but you're doing the opposite. So the opposite of taking your life is how do you bring the best versions of yourself to life? That's the opposite of suicidal ideation. Suicidal ideation is a technique. It's a technique for bringing a sense of energy, a sense of excitement, which is not the quite right word, but a sense of kind of there's a lift. It's weird. It's ironic, but there's a lift that comes from that. And so if you shift, and it's not as simple. It's just don't have those thoughts. Think something else. It's not as simple as that, but that's where the 4 bells come in. So what the 4 bells does, 4 bells is it tames all this. So this gets tamed. And you get to the body, okay? Once you get to the body, you move into the realm of awareness. Once you move into the realm of awareness, you begin to see, oh, I'm aware of this stuff. I'm not this stuff. Once you move into the realm of awareness, you can move into the realm of influencing it. That's the breath. And then finally, you get into bell 4, which is bringing your best self to the moment. So let's practice it. All right. So what cues do you follow for comfort? Follow the cues. Don't miss out on the opportunity to participate with your body. That's what it means by following the cues for comfort. Every time you listen to your body, every time you have a kind of a connection to your body, every time you do that, you are creating that relationship. And that relationship is everything. That relationship is what supports you over time, because you've got so much to feel, so much going on, but you've got to start to notice it. See, most people, what people don't realize is that your brain changes with each thought that you have. And if you're not paying attention to what's going on, then guess what you get better at? You get better at not paying attention. Everything you do, you get better at doing. That's the thing about the body. Now, it can be a curse, right? You can get better and better at thinking about how to take your own life, but you can also get better and better at practicing how to bring the best version of yourself to life. And then here's the piece that I think people who are in the shadow of themselves don't forget, is that life is there. Life is right there waiting for you. Life is right there waiting for you to hold you and love you and to support you. And it's there every single day. Life is always there to show you those things, but mostly you're not aware of it. And the reason why you're not aware of it is because mostly you're in your head. And mostly you're in your head means that you're not noticing your body. You're not doing anything to support your body on a regular basis other than to kind of distract your body and feed its basic needs. You're not using your body in any kind of way. You're not using your breath in any kind of consistent way. So even if you know how to use your breath, you're not using it in any consistent way to influence your system. So you're not really taking advantage of that either. And then you're interacting with these thought worlds, these fantasies that that don't support you at all. But it's what you know. It's what you've always done. It's what you do, and it's familiar. So the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't. So you just kind of stay in that thing, and you just stay in that place. And I get it. I get it. I mean, most of you have trauma. I mean, serious, serious trauma that's really, really hard to contend with. Some of you have trauma that's just unimaginable. Man, just unimaginable. And others, you've tried to get out, and you've gotten pulled back in. So you got a lot of shame, or you've got a lot of anger. I mean, for me, it was anger and shame. Still anger and shame. It's like it's not fixed. It doesn't go away. Once you know that life can be as dark as you've seen it, nothing's ever the same. That's why the body keeps score. It's trauma is massive, 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 massive. And when you juxtapose that to a society that perpetuates this notion that you can get to this idealized place, there's this major disconnect, and there's a sense of failure. There's a sense of doubt. The confidence goes down, and then all your physiology starts to work against you. So you can get now. Here's the cool part, right? As dark as it gets, it can also get that light. Like, that's the thing. It is not in any way, shape, or form, because you've experienced this darkness, that's all you'll know. It's also true that because you've experienced this darkness, you can also experience tremendous enlightenment, just like, whoa, which is, oh wow, life is something. That's also available too. So just know that, as dark as it is, that's also how light you can experience. So anyway, I know you've now cued yourself for comfort. Let's get into bell one. My eyes feel a little bit heavy, so I'm just going to close them straight out. Check for sounds. Locations of sounds. Types of sounds, people sounds, machine sounds, nature sounds. Touch. Notice temperature on your skin. Smell and taste. Get a little bit closer. Feel the body. Feel the moment through the body. A little bit closer in. Smell and taste. Let's go bell 2. Notice your ground. That's everything that's touching something beneath you. So that's, if you've got your feet on the ground, that's the bottom of your feet. If you're sitting on a chair, that's the back of your legs, lower back. If you're sitting on a cushion, it's your rear end. It's your crisscrossed legs. Which parts of your legs do you feel on the ground beneath you? Move up to the pelvis. Pelvis is the base of the spine. Make a little shift there just to kind of ping the region. Remember, it's a relationship you're building. It's not, I don't feel anything. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep sending your awareness to the region. And each time you send your awareness to the region, that region starts to give you more information. Now, ideally, it's not giving you hardly any information. It's giving you real basic stuff. Center of gravity, weight, pressure, but mostly that region of your body should be pretty quiet, and so you just notice that it's kind of quiet, and you watch, and you're participating, and you're basically saying, I'm here, I pay attention, I care. Then you move up the spine to the core region. Now the core region will typically have experience. For me, it's always the experience of holding my core in, squeezing, pulling in. I'm constantly doing that. Constantly. Whenever I eat, I clench my core. Whenever I talk to people, I clench my core. So for me, there's this constant coming back to the core and saying, okay, it's okay. Let that out. Let that out. Let that out. So I do that with the core. Then I move up to the heart space. The heart space is the posture space. Your posture is really driven by how your heart space is kind of carried on the top of your spine. And so for me, that really kind of makes me focus on my shoulder blades. So move the shoulder blades around. I always guide people to move their shoulder blades around when I get to the heart space. It's just really important to notice that when you move your shoulder blades, you're also influencing your collarbones. So there's a lot going on there. And what you want is a nice balanced relationship on your back of where your shoulder blades are, and you want your chest to be as open as comfortable. Next, move into throat space. Throat space is your it's your no, how do I want to say throat space? Your throat space has got a lot of complexity to it. It's got, the smaller vertebra for the spine. You've got your jaw. You've got the inside of the throat. You got the outside of the throat. So the throat space got a lot going on. There's a lot to feel in throat space. Just to swallow, it gives you a sensation. So if you just swallow right there, you can notice that. What I like to notice when I swallow is the beginning of the swallow and then the end. So the experience of the swallow terminates into nothing. So it just kind of goes away. But the beginning of the swallow is quite sensational. So you feel that. And you kind of can feel the whole throat kind of play a role. So you notice that. And you can also notice something real subtle like your breath. So if you breathe in and out here, you might be able to notice the air in your throat. Now here's another one. If you hum, you'll notice vibration in your throat. So just go. Now, how far down do you feel the hum? It's pretty neat. When you notice these things, it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even notice that. So when you hum, see if you can feel how far down you feel the hum. Now, these are all just little things that you use to keep your mind kind of dialed into the present moment, engaged. You move up to the headspace, get taller by a millimeter. This kind of establishes the full alignment of the body, but you're also kind of positioning yourself as being alert and relaxed. So once you get to the highest, most comfortable expression of your spine, notice the muscles of your face and start to soften them. Soften the muscles behind your eyes, soften the cheeks, soften the mouth, soften the jaw, and then all the way down so that what you're left with is alert and aligned. And then move on to bell 3. So bell 3 is breath, so notice your baseline. Max it out. Think sides, breathe sides, feel sides. Think front and back, breathe front and back, feel front and back. Think up and down, breathe up and down, feel up and down. Now, omnidirectional, breathe in all directions. Now let's influence time, 4, 7, 8 breath. Breathe in for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Do that 3 times on your own. Now just sit for a moment before we move into the 4th bell. What are you grateful for? Start simple. Really, really simple. So maybe it's an animal that you love. Maybe it's a piece of equipment that you love. Maybe it's that you got a cup of coffee waiting for you. Just what makes you grateful? Now, if you were able to kind of encapsulate that gratitude, right? If it was a positive vibe, positive energy, and you were able to hold on to it as like a little packet of goodness, is there anybody that you know, and it might even be yourself, is there anybody that you know that you would like to give that packet of goodwill to? If you had to mail it to someone who you knew would enjoy it or appreciate it or would love it or could use it, who would you give it to? So envision your goodness moving through space and time to this person. Maybe it's a string, an imaginary string, whatever you conceive of. Maybe it's a wormhole. It doesn't matter. But imagine that your goodwill is meeting with them in, kind of some middle space, and they appreciate it. They feel it. And so not only did you cultivate something good for yourself, but you gave it away. And what happens when you open your heart and give away your goodwill, you increase in honor. So you don't get honor by getting it. You get honor by giving it. And so that's what happens. That's what religions for all time have said, is that when you cultivate the goodness within you and share it with others, that's your true power. So that's fourth bell. So to finish the practice, take 2 breaths and then come back to the screen on your second exhale. So that's bell 4. So this week, we've kind of explored the what and the why and the how, you know? And, forgive me for not being as clear and concise as I always desire to be. It's, it's a flaw. It's probably one of my biggest flaws. But if you have any questions, about anything, um, let me know. Like this is who I am, and this is my job. This is my role, and so I'm here to be a support structure. I can't fix shit. I'm sorry to say, I really can't. Like, and I'm not really. My role isn't like to be a friend per se. Like to bullshit and to like hang out and all that kind of stuff. That's not my role. My role is to help you recognize what you haven't recognized before and to give you the tools to get to work on it. And I'm always there for that. So if I don't interact with you in like a buddy kind of way, I'm sorry, but I really want to be clear about where I'm willing and able to help, and that's in this realm. So why you need to study the 4 bells, why you want to get a meditation cushion from Armor Down, what you can do about your thoughts, what can you do about recognizing your body, how to get into the body, how do you train, I am yours. I'm all yours. So please don't hesitate to reach out around any of this stuff. And you don't have to worry about me. I'll be an asshole. I'll be a jerk. I'm very careful of my boundaries. So you don't have to worry about whether or not you're doing the right thing or whatever. So just know that I'll always focus on this stuff. This will be the focus of whatever interactions we have, and in that you have absolute freedom to reach out. Just let me know any questions you have, anything you want to work on, and that's also what guides a lot of the sessions. So a lot of what comes out in the morning is guided, of course, by the art of peace. which today's stanza is: failure is the key to success. Each mistake teaches us something. So that's always what the guard of peace is always guiding the training in different kind of spiritual ways. Um, so yeah, I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're working on. I want to know what works, what's not working. I want to know your questions that'll guide the training next week. So yeah, but all right, I'm done for the week. It's been a really good training week. It's felt good. So I hope it's helpful. Again, reach out if you need to, or if you want to, or if you have any questions. And then have a great weekend, Arbor Town. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for everyone that's been watching.